The given of all of these social institutions that I think are corrupted is that they have power over other people. There's what Wing calls the dominion system. And it's very contrary to Christ's model of what I have called elsewhere power under. It's service. And whenever any institution, including churches, begin to exercise power over people in coercive ways, that becomes something demonic. Where you in any way dehumanize another person or act and treat them in ways that don't reflect their unsurpassable worth, as is evidenced by the fact that Christ died for them, you're dealing with something that is now going at cross purposes with God. And it's to that degree, I would say, demonic. And there's always a pull in that direction. Whereas the model of leadership in the kingdom is servant leadership. You're there to serve. Which doesn't mean you don't have authority, but it means that the authority isn't demanded or coerced. And the authority is your way of serving others. You have a gift for leadership, and you serve others by exercising that gift. But there's always a demonic pull to begin to feed yourself with that authority, and then use it for self purposes, self glorification, or whatever, as opposed to using it to further the kingdom. So you just have to be aware of that and hold up at all times Christ as the model of what leadership in the kingdom is, and just be aware that there's always warfare that is working against you. Prayer is a foundational, if not the foundational, weapon of warfare. Paul says that in Ephesians 6. And I mean, this is, I think, really the classic text on the whole topic that we're discussing here is Ephesians 6, where Paul says, "Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers and authorities in dark places." And then he talks about the weapons of the warfare that we're to take on. And so we always have to remember in all of our dealings that when there's disagreements, and as there always are, and the conflicts, as there always are, we have to always understand that there are powers that are trying to play us. And the main way they play us is by influencing me to think you're the enemy, and vice versa. Whereas in fact, the enemy is neither you or I, it's the powers that are trying to influence both you and I to make each other enemies. The conflicts are normal, but you can work through those in Christ-like ways, in ways that reflect love. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 16:14, "Let everything you do be done in love." And that really is, I think, a way to burn through the powers is to commit to always living and interacting in ways that are consistent with Calvary-like love, Christ-like love, where everything you do and say, even when you're in an argument, reflects the fact that the other person was worth Jesus dying for. That's our most fundamental kingdom commitment. And if at any time we're interacting in ways where your unsurpassable worth that was ascribed to you on Calvary is not being reflected, it's time to stop and say, take a break, and let's cool our tool and pray about this, get our orientation rightly centered on the kingdom, and I'll come back and discuss this conflict. Praying together is an incredible way to burn through the clouds of oppression that are on all institutions. Living in Christ-like love burns through the clouds that are oppressing institutions. And then all of the things that Paul lists in Ephesians 6, wearing the belt of truth, knowing who you are in Christ, remembering what is true, what the purpose of the world is, what the purpose of our life is, and knowing the Word, and all those things are ways of combating the powers.